Tonight, I'm very proud to welcome a very special guest, a man who's on the front lines of one of the most scrutinized cities in the world, Mayor Eric Adams. He's leading nearly 9 million people through crime waves, budget cuts, and political backlash. But what you're not hearing in the headlines? Crime is down. Major arrests are up. And the NYPD, with fewer officers than in years past, is claiming victories both above and below ground. So how is this happening? And what's the real story behind the numbers? Mayor Adams opens up about policing, public perception, pay raises, and what it takes to keep the safest big city in America from falling apart. Mayor Adams, thank you for joining me and taking time to sit down and talk about things.
Thank you, Dr. Phil. Great to be on your show.
One of the things that you are most committed to are the safety of New Yorkers. And I've spent time with you. I've spent time with NYPD leadership. So I know how devoted to this you are and how important it is to you and the NYPD. And in a city that's almost 9 million strong, this is an ongoing challenge and an ongoing battle. How is it going?
It's going well. We have been successful above ground and below ground. We have a subway system here in our city that moves about 4.6 million people a day. And when you do an analysis, we have roughly 5 felonies a day that takes place on our system. We want to get rid of those 5 felonies, but we want to just really thank our police officers, because to move 4.6 million people daily, that is one heck of a task. And above ground just as well. We count our crimes looking at quarters every 3 months. And the last quarter, we had the lowest number of shootings in recorded history in the city, and the second lowest number of homicides in recorded history in the city. And we saw a crime drop in many of our major crime categories. It's something we call the 7 majors, the robberies, the felonious assaults, burglary, grand larceny, homicides. Those are the groups that really gives an indicator of how cities are doing. And the FBI's Uniform Crime Report tells us that we must report these crimes to see how cities are doing. We are the safest big city in America. And there's a lot of sensationalism that you will hear of a city of 8.5 million people. You will hear a heinous act and it's plastered on our front pages. So you have the tendency to believe that the city is in disorder. Nothing could be further from the truth. The city has recovered at a remarkable rate.
Well, tell me something, and I really want to understand this because I've done some research here. You have fewer law enforcement officers now than you did 3 or 4 years ago, but nonetheless, you've been able to push crime down, particularly in the major crime areas. How are you pulling that off?
Yes, and that is an amazing story that has yet to be properly told. And it's several different overall themes that we put in place. The first thing we had to do is stop disrespecting our police and give them the salary that they deserve. We lost a lot of men and women in law enforcement because they went to the neighboring counties. They were not being paid the salary that they deserved. I sat down with my police union, the PBA. At the time, it was Patrick Lynch, a longtime union president. And we were able to carve out and come to an agreement on a contract that paid police officers what they deserve and showed them the respect that they deserve. The second, my message was clear. Public safety is a prerequisite to our prosperity. It is a foundation that you build everything on. And in fact, it's the economic stimulus package that I like to say, if you're safe, businesses will come, families will grow. And we had to let our officers know, we got your back. You run towards danger while others run away. And when you do that, we're going to be here and support you under the circumstances that you encounter every day. And police officers started to feel as though they had a mayor that was at one time in their rank and file as a retired captain, 22 years of service. They knew I understand the complexities of responding to dangerous encounter. They started feeling better about themselves. And in return, they were willing to go out and do the job. And we're seeing it. We're seeing case clearances are high. We're seeing arrests are high. We're seeing over 21,000 illegal guns removed off our streets, over 80-something thousand illegal vehicles removed off our streets. And so that was the police aspect of it. But Dr. Phil, there was another aspect that we didn't ignore, and that's jobs. We knew we had to bring back jobs to this city because if someone is employed, they have a better feeling about themselves and in the city. We broke the job records 11 times. More jobs are in this city, in the city's history, and we dropped unemployment across all demographics in general, but specifically for those who were in low-income communities, we were able to drop unemployment, and you're seeing the city come back alive, and just the energy is back here again. And so if you don't feel despair, you are willing to not go down in the road of criminality, and we knew we could do that by being proactive in some of our actions with a good police force doing a job.
I spent a lot of time in New York City. I've spent some time on the streets with you, and you've witnessed. I don't pass an officer if I don't stop and say, hey, thank you for your service. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for standing on this street corner. And I visit with them if they have time. I don't want to distract them or be in their way or anything, but I've talked to, I would venture to say, hundreds of cops on the streets in New York City, in the subway, underground, on ground. And the morale among the police force is uncommonly high. What do you attribute that to? Let's discuss preparedness, because we know emergencies happen when we least expect them, but instead of just taking it, we can prepare. Let's discuss Jace Case, one of your most important preparation tools. With Jace Case, you'll have emergency prescription medications on hand right when you need them. Think about it. Ever been caught off guard, whether it's a sudden illness or a travel hiccup? The right medications can make all the difference. Jace Case is designed to take that worry off your plate, so when a minor health issue pops up, it doesn't turn into a major problem. Don't let unforeseen circumstances derail your plans or your peace of mind. Live with confidence. Take charge with Jace today. Visit jace.com and use code PHIL for a discount on your order and get emergency antibiotics on hand for the moment you need them. That's JASE.com, code PHIL, PHIL.
A number of things. And, I tell people all the time, those who embrace the mantra of defund or disband police departments, I do a great deal of town halls, both older adults, youth town halls, and just normal town halls. And I have not attended one town hall where people stated, we don't want our police. Just the opposite. They want their police. And being able to ensure those who understand the nobility of policing is being supported in a good atmosphere, good salaries, and a clean environment with the tools they need to do the job, that boosts the morale we're looking for. Because you know and I know policing is a very difficult and challenging occupation. And it takes a special breed of people who are willing to go through that door where an armed suspect is located, or as we saw last night here in New York, our officers were shot at by a recidivist who was armed with 2 guns, yet without discharging one round, those officers were able to subdue and bring that person to justice. It takes a great deal of discipline. And sometimes we've dehumanized the profession, not understanding that police officers are human beings. They have emotions, they have fears, they have uncertainties, they have loved ones at home that want them to return. My brother and I often talked about how mom used to always stay up late at night hoping and making sure that we got home safe from our tours of duties. And so when you stop dehumanizing officers and give them the support that they deserve, they're willing to go out and do the job, because the goal is to fight against the bad guys and make sure that our city is safe for working class people, children, and families.
Recidivism is clearly an issue, and it's not just an issue in New York City. This is a national problem. It's a national issue, and it actually has to do with a lot of different things in terms of education and options for these people and all. But when you face something like this, and you know that these known criminals are back out on the street, it shouldn't be difficult to predict what's going to happen, but yet it continues to happen. This is cyclical in New York State. It's cyclical in the United States. What's going to happen to get this under control?
And that's a great question. And you mentioned several different dynamics. Opportunities, I believe, is at the heart of ensuring that you bring down some of the recidivism. And for those who don't know, recidivism is when people repeatedly commit violent crimes or other types of crime. That is at the heart of the problem that we've had in our cities. And I believe it's at the heart of the problems we're seeing over the entire country, where you see high levels of crime. It's a small number of people who are committing repeated acts over and over again. For instance, we had a mother, a grandmother, and a prominent business owner here in our city. A few weeks ago, she was in a beauty salon. She stepped out to look at her loved one, her grandson, and she was shot in the head and killed. The person who shot her was arrested last year for stabbing two people during a robbery, yet he was back out on the streets. And then you had an incident where a police officer off duty was shot in his hip area. The two people who tried to rob his car and did the shooting was arrested over 10 times, and yet they were still on our streets. And so it's case after case of this small number of people committed repeated offenses. Our laws must become stronger. We witness in this city and state something called bail reform laws and other laws, such as raise the age, they called it, where we saw repeated offenders coming out of our criminal justice system. So when people think of criminal justice, they must understand the police is only one part of it. Prosecutors, judges, lawmakers, those are the other arms in law enforcement and keeping our city safe. And I'm finding throughout our country, more attention is placed on protecting people who are committing crimes instead of protecting those people who are the victims of those crimes. And we need to change that direction, and we need to do it immediately.
Yeah, and there are things that can be done about that. That's what I'm glad that you brought that up, because we see the literature that says if you've got people in prison and a high percentage of those in prison have low literacy rates, and if they'll participate in literacy programs, and if a prison has a good literacy program where they're giving them the tools, they're teaching them to read, they're giving them the skills they need to have options when they get out, the recidivism rate has shown to drop as much as 43% if you can get them into a literacy program, so when they get out, they have options. They're much less likely to reoffend. So there are things we can do while they're in there.
No, well said, well said. And you know, that is not being soft on crime. That is not rewarding criminal behavior. That is investing in public safety.
Hey, Dr. Phil here. Your savings are at risk. With the economy on shaky ground, the dollar losing value, and a $2 trillion deficit, things could spiral. Don't wait for the worst. Take control of your financial future now. I trust Preserve Gold to safeguard my accounts, and I urge you to do the same. They're the only precious metals company I recommend. What are you going to do to protect what's yours? Claim your special offer and learn how to reinforce your financial future. Visit drphilgold.com to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue through 2025, You cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Visit drphilgold.com today. You've been criticized soundly in the media for working with ICE in New York City. And New York City is a sanctuary city. Is there a conflict between maintaining sanctuary guidelines and working with ICE to get dangerous criminals off the street? Or is there a conflict there, or is there not?
No, there is not a conflict. And what we must do, we must stop identifying ICE and HSI as criminal organizations. They're not. They're law enforcement organizations. And we must get that clear, because the men and women who are carrying out the duties of dealing with immigration enforcement, they are sworn to do their job. And I think over the last few years, we have identified the organization as a illegal or criminal organization, which in fact is not. And I made it clear as mayor, we're going to align with our federal authorities to go after those who are creating harm to innocent New Yorkers and innocent Americans. And it doesn't matter really if you're documented or undocumented. That mission remains clear. But particularly if you are undocumented, you are violating your right to be here in this country. And I feel strongly that after you are convicted and serve your time, you should be deported from this country. Our city laws does not allow our governmental agencies to collaborate around only civil enforcement, but we are permitted to do criminal enforcement, and we have done that with ICE. Even when you saw a few weeks ago when we took down 27 dangerous gang members who were involved in sex trafficking. They were involved in guns and robberies and crimes and very dangerous acts. And they were even preying on other immigrants. And so when you hear people state that we should not collaborate with our federal partners to go after dangerous people, I don't subscribe to that. And I would never allow our law enforcement officers to not associate themselves with working with our federal partners.
Well, now, let me see if I understand this right. Your sanctuary guidelines are to provide shelter and support for those that don't have it, correct? It doesn't have anything to do with immigrants, legal or otherwise. I mean, aren't the sanctuary guidelines, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I don't want to get out ahead of myself, but don't the sanctuary guidelines have to do with providing sanctuary for those that don't have it?
That is so important what you just stated, because sometimes it gets conflated to our right to shelter and sanctuary city designation. So first, we need to be very clear. There is no sanctuary city law. There's not a law that says sanctuary city. It is a concept that states if you don't allow people, regardless of their immigration status, to receive services from a city, then you are going to create chaos in that city. And what does that look like? If I have, as we saw during the migrants and asylum seeker crises, I had 40,000 children that came into my city. I didn't control them coming across the border, but they came into the city. If I did not put those children in school, which is the safest place for a child, then those children can be exposed to sex trafficking, abuse, and all other forms of issues, and deal with real literacy issues. As you stated, that lack of literacy leads to criminality. Second, if I didn't tell people if you are a victim of a crime, you should feel comfortable going to the police, then those people who are undocumented would feel uncomfortable to go into the police, and they would be preyed upon. Or if I didn't provide some form of housing until you could get on your footing, then I'm going to have people sleeping on my streets, as you see in some other cities, creating a chaotic environment. So the concept that you should use city services to stabilize your life is what my interpretation of saying that no matter who you are, documented or undocumented, when you buy that loaf of bread, you pay taxes with that loaf of bread, so you should be able to utilize the basic services. But it does not give anyone the authority that if they commit a crime or do something harmful, that we should not collaborate with ICE or HSI or federal authorities to address the criminality that they did.
If a citizen is victimized with a crime, a violent crime, if I'm a citizen, it doesn't make any difference to me whether they were born 2 blocks down the street or they were born in El Salvador. I don't give a damn where they were born. If they're a violent criminal, I want them out of my community. And it seems to me if the edict goes out that you police officers are not to cooperate if they're from a foreign country and they victimize me, they mug me, they rape my wife or sister or something like that, I can't help arrest and incarcerate them because they're not a U.S. citizen. That seems absolutely absurd to me. The next time you gather with family, enjoy Balance of Nature supplements as an addition to your favorite dishes. Our veggie supplement, made from 15 ingredients like garlic, onion, and cayenne pepper, can easily be opened and added to your favorite dishes like homemade soups or dips. Not to mention our fruits supplement, which is made from 16 ingredients like banana, strawberries, and mango, making it a great addition to your homemade smoothies. Start your journey with Balance of Nature. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com to get a free fiber and spice supplement, plus 35% off your first preferred set as a new preferred customer with free shipping and our money-back guarantee. Go to balanceofnature.com or call 1-800-246-8751 and get this special offer by using discount code Dr. Phil. That's DRPHIL.
Well said. And over 80% of New Yorkers embrace the belief that we should be deporting those who commit these crimes after their convictions. Over 80% embrace this belief because you're right. If someone is harmful to your family member or loved one, the last thing you want to know is what is their documentation status. But when you have specifically dangerous gangs like we're seeing, we need to zero in on them and make sure that they do not inflict their violence. When I was in Ecuador a few years ago, talking about the migrants and asylum seeker crisis and speak with some of the Ecuadorians, they stated they did not want to leave Ecuador, but they were fleeing the dangerous gangs. And when they came to New York, they saw those same dangerous gangs attempting to have a foothold in our city. And we have been extremely clear, you will not have a foothold in New York. And we were able to identify and apprehend many of them, as you saw 2 weeks ago, where a group of dangerous gang members assaulted our police officers. We will not be a safe haven for those who are participating in illegal behavior.
Those attacks that you're talking about, there were juveniles in there, and the arrest records for some of these people were 4, 5, 6, 7 times that these gang members had been arrested, and they're out attacking police officers on the corner down on Broadway, and they round them up and get every one of them arrested. And I was told by some members of the police department that the very next day they were back on the corner of 42nd Street.
It's unbelievable when you think about it. And one of the leaders was a 12-year-old gang member. He was the leader of the group calling the shots. And we have many lax laws in this city, particularly when it comes down to violent juveniles. There was something that was passed in the state called Raise the Age, and it is allowing those dangerous juveniles to be really part of the revolving door system. And we need to zero in, particularly the recidivists. When you deal with the recidivism, you start to make a major impact in public safety, and the failure to do so will send the wrong message that criminal behavior is acceptable, and it comes with a level of punity that you can keep doing it over and over again. That is what we must stop, and that is what our lawmakers must put in place. We're doing our jobs as our police department, but the other parts of the criminal justice system must catch up and do their job.
I've got to ask you about Columbia University. There was action there again recently, and I think there were, 78 arrests made there last week because of protesters and activists there. And anti-Semitism is up across the country. But the difference is New York City has the highest concentration of Jewish population outside of Israel. So anti-Semitism really stings when you have the highest Jewish population outside of Israel. What do you make of what's going on our elite campuses and particularly Columbia University?
And it's a real problem. And I think it is a blemish on our country in general, but specifically here in New York City. As you indicated, New York City has the largest Jewish population outside of Israel. And knowing that region and spending time and visiting not only Israel, but Jordan and Oman and Saudi Arabia and many of our other Muslim and cross-cultural places. We know that public safety, as I always state, is the prerequisite to our prosperity. And those who are Jewish students should feel comfortable going to school on their campuses. And this plague of violence and intimidation and harassment that has swept our college campuses and specifically our Ivy League schools is something we must acknowledge. And what many people don't understand, in New York City, we cannot automatically go on a college ground or college campus. We must get permission from the faculty of the school. That is the requirement in New York. And as soon as something happens on one of our college campuses, unless it's an emergency, we will always go to an emergency. But if a protest or disruption or taking over a school building, if it happens on one of our college grounds, we have to get authorization and permission from the school faculty to go on and take action. Thank God that in this circumstance, the school did not wait days like they did previously. They reached out to the NYPD, asked for their assistance. We went in, made the necessary arrests, and brought back peace and order on the grounds. But I think there's several things we're looking at. Our young people, Dr. Phil, they are being radicalized. They're being radicalized to hate America, to hate our way of life, and that hate is going into a level of anti-Semitism. And that form of hate will never be accepted and tolerated in the city. This city is a melting pot of different philosophies, beliefs, and culture. And I have an obligation and responsibility to make people not only feel accepted, but protected as they move about with their lives.
We're looking at some pictures right now of the damage that was done by the protesters in the library at Columbia University. And so these protesters, there were, I guess, between 200-300 in there, 70 plus were arrested. They, of course, will be charged with trespass and property crime for vandalism or some sort because they damaged the library. Will the university, have they taken a position on what they'll do with these students? Will they be expelled? Will they lose their semester? Will anything be done? Have they made a position known of what they'll do with these students?
No, and the charges is everything from criminal trespass to criminal mischief. So there's a series of crimes they could be charged with. And the university, they must be the complainant in these cases. And we will hope that they will send the right message and not only do the arrest and have it dismissed, but to follow all the way through. This will send the right message to those who believe they could destroy property or disrupt the education of other students.
Well, I mean, somebody's got to put their foot down here. I have to tell you, I never thought that in my lifetime I would hear some of the rhetoric on college campuses, particularly our elite college campuses, that I've heard since October 7th and even before. I never thought I would hear this on our college campuses, this anti-Semitic rhetoric. And I don't really know how to explain it, but it's not our finest hour. I just have to say it's not our finest hour. And I guess one of the ways I explain it is I think maybe these young people just are not critical thinkers, and I think maybe they've just defined this as oppressed and oppressors, and they paint the Jews as oppressors in Israel and the Palestinians and Hamas as the oppressed, and somehow or another they've justified it in that way. I don't know, but I'm very troubled by it, and I've made that very clear. So I'm glad to see that in this case the acting president reached out to the NYPD and cleared it quickly, because the finals are coming up and the vast majority of students there want to get their education and move on.
Well said. And
I hope that happens.
And particularly when you think of the actions that we saw that took place on October 7th with Hamas, and when I hear people attempt to rationalize and become philosophical over this conversation and try to find understanding of Hamas must be destroyed and every hostage must be returned home. And that level of clarity says a lot. It is a terrorist organization that not only preys on innocent Jews, but it also preys on innocent people from Palestine.
You actually spoke about October 7th right after it occurred.
It will go down in the history as one of the most draconian, disgusting acts you can ever witness. And no one should be celebrating this. No one. Humanity should be angry. Yes, I stand with Israel. Yes, I stand with the Jewish community. But most importantly, I stand with humanity. I stand with human behavior that should never reach this depth.
You were very passionate in those comments that you made right after October 7th, and I know that that had to be very uplifting to the Jewish community in New York City.
Yeah, and it wasn't something that I rehearsed. It wasn't something that I wanted to seem as though there was a scripted approach to an unscripted level of pain. I knew, based on speaking to my associates, colleagues, and employees, I knew that people were not all right. And we could not pretend as though what happened on October 7th, the second form of a modern day Holocaust, we could not act like the pain was not real. And I wanted to put in words to those who experienced it that here in New York City, we have the largest Jewish population. We wanted to be clear that we were not all right. And we feel as though every hostage should be returned home and Hamas needs to be destroyed. And that is the beginning step of the healing process. And we want peace in the region. We have a large population of Muslims, a large population of individuals who come from that region. And our hearts goes out to any innocent person who's lost. But the catalyst of this comes from a terrorist organization, and it needs to be dealt with accordingly.
You made a trip to Washington, D.C. and sat down with President Trump, and I know you have a good relationship with him. How was the visit?
Well, it was multifaceted. The first thing I wanted to do, that was the first time I had an opportunity to sit down face to face with the president. One of the first things I wanted to do was to thank him. While on the campaign trail, he talked about the unfair treatment that I received. And I did not know the president, Dr. Phil. I want to be clear on that. Prior to his campaigning, I don't believe we've ever met, probably just in passing to say hello. He was a known developer here in the city. And he took a very strong stance of the unfair treatment that I experienced at the hands of the previous administration Department of Justice. And the former president said his Department of Justice became politicized. President Trump said it was politicized, and I was saying it was politicized. And some of the things that happened, no American should ever endure. And I just wanted to, just personally, as one human being to the next, I knew what he went through with the attempted assassination on his life. I knew what he went through with the DOJ, and I just wanted to say thank you. And then we delved into city business. He loves the city. You know, he's in New York. I know he's in Florida now, but he loves the city and what it stands for. His family is still here, still part of it. His son attends college here. And so you have to love the city. You know, when you hear something bad happen in the city, you have to love it. And I talked about just some of the good things that we could do in the city. And one of the areas that are really focused to me is the chip plant that we could build in the Bronx, in a place called the Kingsbridge Armory. It's a huge location that has remained empty and dormant for years. I put $100 million in the development. I know the president is focused on having jobs in the city, particularly those jobs we're dependent on. We also, what happened during COVID-19, when we needed to get PPE, masks, and other items from China. We could start producing our own items here in this country, and I shared my belief and concept with him, and it's something I would like to continue to speak with him about. And also the wind farm project that we're looking forward to do in the area of our Sunset Park and our Brooklyn Marine Terminal. I gave him my overview of that. We're talking about 1,000 jobs, giving power to 500,000 homes, a whole development and investment that's unbelievable of almost $3 billion investment from our partners, Equinor, that's supposed to be a part of this. And many of the raw materials is coming from places like Mississippi, Florida, Texas, Iowa, different parts of the country. So this is a real win for us, and I wanted to share it with him as well to see if we could come to an understanding of moving this project forward. We already invested almost $1.1 billion in the project already. 51% of the project is already underway, and I just wanted to give him some real insight because when you're a chief executive, sometimes it's good just to get a real overview on the ground. And we had the Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Duffy, here to look at our BQE project as well. He did a walkthrough. He saw how important it is. And so that's why it is crucial that as the mayor of the largest city in America, that I interact with this administration. I'm here to work with this administration, not to war with this administration. And I respect the office of the president. And each time I communicated with him, he talked about the love for the city and a love for the people of this city. And I think it's imperative that we continue to share ideas and continue to understand that elections, those are intramurals. Those are internal games. But after the election is over, we wear one jersey, and that's Team America. We should never forget that, and always understand that our boys and girls go abroad to defend this country. We sit under the tree of freedom that they will water with their blood, and we would desecrate their sacrifices if we don't continue to move and build this country for working class people all over this country.
Well, he's running the country and you're running the biggest city in the country, so it seems to me that you two need to stay in pretty close contact. Politics aside, you need to stay in pretty close contact. So
I agree.
Listen, Mayor, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with me about this. New York, being the #1 city in the country, is the trendsetter, the pace setter for the rest of the country. Politics aside, it really is the example for the rest of the country. And boy, are you setting a good one. Crime is down, public safety is up, commerce is up. I mean, you're just setting a great example, and we thank you for it.
No, and it's so important. And working with our national partners crucial. I worked with President Biden to bring law enforcement here was so important. And I'm looking forward to working with this administration as we continue to evolve. This city has returned, as I stated, more jobs in the city's history. When you look at it, crime is down, employment is up. We are investing in working class families, building housing, dealing with our mental health crises. It's a very unique place to be the mayor of the greatest city on the globe, I like to call it. And we're going to continue to do what's best for this city. When you spent 22 years wearing a bulletproof vest, protecting children and families, you have a different love affair with the city. And that's the love affair I brought into City Hall. And I'm going to continue to fight for working class New Yorkers.